Hello, it's Dr. Trussell, and here we want to go through Chapter 8, Plan Part 2, Evaluation Design from the Giancola textbook, Program Evaluation, Embedding Evaluation into Program Design and Development. As usual with these videos, I encourage you to go and read through the chapter carefully. There is a lot in there, and I'm really just going to touch the very tip of the iceberg here in this quick overview. So, Chapter 8 is on designing our evaluation, and it's important to remember the reason that we evaluate in the first place. We're monitoring programs to foster continuous improvement, and in order to do that, our evaluation needs to be able to credit our outcomes to the program. In other words, it relies on attribution. We want to be able to attribute the outcomes that we notice to the actual program, so that we understand what the program is actually doing or not doing. And the more we can directly attribute our findings to the program strategies, the more meaningful our evaluation will be. And as long as we're able to do that, then with a strong evaluation design, we'd really like to have positive findings that our program is doing what we expected, and that it's doing good, right? But even an evaluation that helps us to discontinue a program that doesn't work is just as valuable as findings that enable us to continue to build on a program that does work. So if we're evaluating well, and we're able to really attribute the outcomes that we see or don't see to the program, what the program's doing, then there's no, say, good or bad result from our evaluation. It's a useful evaluation either way. So in order to be able to attribute our outcomes to our program strategies, we need what's called design rigor. Rigor is the extent to which our evaluation design merits attribution of strategies to measured outcomes. So the extent to which our evaluation design allows us to match up the outcomes to the program. Are we sure the program is what caused this thing to happen or not to happen? Which is, of course, evidence of causation. If we're able to attribute the program or the cause to the measured outcomes, the effect. That's our goal, as best we can within the bounds that we have and with the resources that we have. We want to be as rigorous as we can. So there's several different types of evaluation designs, some more rigorous than others. So they're non-experimental single group designs. So a single group design is the simplest evaluation design, but it's also the weakest. It's weak because there might be a lot of different explanations about why the evaluation measured the results it did if you don't have a group to compare with the group that received your program or treatment, right? So it's hard to say if we just have one group that we are focusing on, that the program, everyone in the group is a program participant. It's hard to say that what we see happen with those program participants is truly a result of the program and not a result of some outside factor, unless we have which we'll look at in the next type of program design, unless we have a group that we're comparing to that doesn't receive the program or doesn't participate in the program, and then we can better tease out the results or the cause and effect, right, from the program. So single group designs, sometimes they're weak, but sometimes it's the best we can do with the resources we've got. Because, like I said, it's the simplest. You just have a group that are participating in a program, and you don't have another similar group. or maybe it's unethical to have another similar group that you withhold a particular treatment from, right? And so if a single group design is best you've got, you can improve your credibility by mixing in your logic model with your single group design. And so you can show progression within your single group, and you can then link that to the logic and theory that's in your logic model and show why you theoretically expect that the outcomes you're seeing in your group are linked to your program, even though you can't really super strongly say that there's a cause and effect here because you don't have a comparison group. You can match your theory with what you're seeing and say, look, this is what we expected theoretically. And so we have a really strong inkling that the outcomes we're seeing truly are attributable to the program. So if a single group design is what is the best you can do with your resources, there are things you can do to make it more robust. Another type of evaluation design that is a little more rigorous is the comparison group design, also called the quasi-experimental design. This improves the usability of our findings. So we have a program group, a group that is participating in our program, and we have a comparison group, which is a group that we find or create that is similar in as many ways as possible to our program group. And ideally, the only thing that differs between our comparison group and our program group is that the program group is exposed to the program and the comparison group is not. This allows us to see how the program group changes in ways that the comparison group doesn't, and to attribute those changes more likely to the program. You can be really creative in coming up with your comparison groups, designing, choosing a group that's similar to your program group in terms of demographics or geography or socioeconomics or whatever. You especially want to focus on the qualities in your group that you think might influence the outcomes, like gender or socioeconomics. And you want to be sure that your program group and comparison group are similar along those qualities. So an example here might be you're implementing a new reading program in a school. You want to compare a classroom that is getting the reading program to a classroom that's not getting the reading program. The best way to make sure your comparison allows you to attribute your findings or your outcomes to your new program is to make sure that the two classrooms you look at had similar reading levels going into your program, right? And that you have similar socioeconomic indicators, so that these things that we know from previous studies are associated with reading outcomes, we want to make sure that we control for those when we create our comparison group or identify our comparison group. But you can be really creative in figuring out what's a good comparison group for your program group. The next type of evaluation design is a true experiment, an experimental design, where now we have a program group and a control group. Similar design as far as how you'll compare your two groups to the quasi-experimental, but the difference here is that your program group and control group are created through random assignment. So we're not out there looking for a similar comparison group that's similar to our program group. We're not creating, we're not finding a group that already exists that's similar to our group. We're creating a group randomly through what's called a randomized control trial. Theoretically, the process of random assignment creates groups that are equivalent across observable and unobservable characteristics, which means now we have two groups that are theoretically equivalent, and we're going to give the program to one and not to the other and watch how they change relative to each other. This is the most rigorous of all the designs that allows us the best information about causality between the outcomes that we see and the program strategies that we've implemented. Now, choosing the best design for your program, there's not really a right or wrong evaluation design. You got to be creative with the resources that you have in designing your comparison or control group. There are different opinions about what design is best. If we want most rigorous, then best is the randomized control trial. But some might say that randomized trials aren't generalizable to other populations. We have these random groups. We don't have groups that actually represent the other populations that we might intend to serve. So a lot of folks question the additional time and effort involved in creating a control group when a comparison group in a quasi-experiment may do just as well or almost as well, or even in some cases might do a better job of looking at how your program would serve those that it truly targets. So there's no one best design. There's certainly a continuum of less rigorous to more rigorous, but there are pros and cons to those levels of rigor. There's also, after you've decided on your evaluation design, you can add to that evaluation enrichments. So use repeated measures. Measure the thing more than once during your evaluation. That helps to add to your outcome, to your evaluation, and the usefulness of it. It helps to sort of create a fuller picture, a more detailed story, if you will, of what's going on. Use longitudinal data, which means you're looking at outcomes over time, and you can in fact use that to look at how things changed at certain points in time, to try to nail down when or what the effect of a program is. Use sampling. If you've got so many program participants that you can't use all of them in your evaluation, then choose a smaller group from within the larger group, and hopefully, maybe ideally, randomly sample them. Just because a random sample may be more easily accepted by the stakeholder groups when they're wanting to know how you chose the ones that you looked at out of the larger population of participants. Use logic modeling, as we discussed before over in the single group design. Use your logic model to help strengthen the credibility of your findings. Say, here's what we found. We're pretty sure from our evaluation design that we've uncovered some causality, but we can be even more sure when we look back at our theory and see this is actually the causality we expected theoretically, as well as what we're seeing in our evaluation. And then there's case studies, which give us an in-depth examination of a single person or group or context, can enrich our understanding of a program, provide a bigger picture of how the program operates. It adds stories and context to the other data that we've collected. So speaking of data, there's a couple of different types of data, a couple of different types of methods of evaluation that give us a couple of different types of data. So qualitative methods give us qualitative data. They focus on non-categorical, observational, or narrative data. Methods that include interviews, focus groups, observations, using existing data. That could also be quantitative data. Portfolios of things that have happened through the program, and case studies. All of these are qualitative methods of evaluation. And then quantitative methods focus on categorical or numerical data. We use things like assessments or tests to collect quantitative data. And when we do that, it's important that we choose assessments or tests that are both reliable and valid. So reliability is the consistency with which an instrument measures something, and validity is the accuracy with which an instrument measures a construct. So reliability says if we do this over and over and over, we get the same result. And validity says we're actually measuring what we intended to measure with our assessment or test. We're measuring it accurately. Then also some other quantitative methods of evaluation are using surveys or questionnaires, which can be closed-ended or open-ended. And especially with an open-ended survey or questionnaire, you may have a rubric that allows you to sort of score your survey. It's a guideline that's used to objectively examine subjective data. So it's a scoring guide that you use to categorize your text-based or observational information based on certain criteria or elements of performance. And lastly, a lot of times evaluators will use mixed methods where we combine qualitative and quantitative. Using multiple measures, quantitative and qualitative, provides for a much more valid determination of impact. It's even more rigorous. It's a sort of better, more well-rounded evaluation and gives us a better picture of what our outcomes are and how or if they are associated to the program.